Namaste, welcome to Himalai. This is Keshav Sir's Prelims Lens, Chapterwise General Studies Questions and Answer Explanation. Well, these are the topics that we'll be covering today regarding Indian history. Let's move on with the questions. Who of the following founded a new city on the south bank of a tributary to River Krishna and undertook to rule his new kingdom as the agent of a deity to whom all the land south of the river Krishna was supported to belong? So it's a South Indian kingdom. Further down below, Krishna River. Now let's look at the options. Option A, Amogha Varsha. Option B, Ballala the second. Option C, Harihara the first. Option D, Prataparudra the second. The bank of the river Krishna, one of the major empires in Indian history, which worshipped a Hindu god by the name Virupaksha, was established. The founders of these kingdoms were the feudatories of Hoysala kings. And when Veeraballala II, the last Hoysala king, was defeated, there was a vacuum created in South India. And this vacuum was captured by the feudatories who went by the name Harihara and Bukka, and they established a new empire called Vijayanagara Empire. This Harihara I and Bukka, they started their rule from 1336 as a part of Sangama dynasty, which was one of the four dynasties that ruled, that were a part of Vijayanagara rule, which is Sangama, Saluva, Tuluva, and Aravidu. Okay, and the god they worshipped was Virupaksha. So the answer is option C. And for your information, Vijayanagara Empire reached its zenith under the rule of King Krishnadevaraya. So the answer is C, Harihara the first. The next question, regarding the Indus Valley Civilization, consider the following statements. Number one, it was predominantly a secular civilization, and the religious element, though present, did not dominate the scene. Statement 2, during this period, cotton was used for manufacturing textiles in India. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Option A, 1 only. Option B, 2 only. Option C, both 1 and 2 are correct. Option D, neither 1 or 2. Indus Valley Civilization was one of the earliest civilizations of the world that flourished between 3300 to 1300 BC. And much of the civilization, the prominent towns, the prominent cities of this Indus Valley civilization is located in the present day northwestern India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, which stretches till Iran in the west. Now, Indus Valley civilization certainly has a religious element. They worshipped figures like Mother Goddess, People Tree, and the phallus. However, that civilization was one of the most urbanized civilization of that time, and going by the archaeological excavations, it said that though it was religious, the main factor that defined Indus Valley civilization was its urbanization, was its trade, was its economy. All these show or put an idea that though there was an element of religion, it did not dominate the scene. So it was a sort of secular civilization. And there was no evidence of religious discrimination within the society of Indus Valley. So going by this understanding that we get from archaeological excavations, the statement 1 is right. And regarding the statement 2, one has to be remembered of an archaeological excavation of a few cotton seeds in an Indus Valley site called Mehragar, which dates back to 5,000 years. And it's interesting to know that it is in this Indus Valley civilization that there is the most earliest evidence of cotton used by anyone. So, going by this, we can also say that statement 2 is correct, that cotton was used to manufacture textiles at that time. So, the right answer is option C. Both statements 1 and 2 are correct. The next question, Anekantavada is a core theory and philosophy of which one of the following? Anekantavada. Aneka Antavada. Option A, Buddhism. Option B, Jainism. Option C, Sikhism. Option D, Vaishnavism. Now, Anekantavada was a secular philosophy propounded by a religion that emerged to challenge the orthodox religions of that time. And Anekantavada professed that ultimate truth has many sides, Aneka, many sides, and reality is complex, and many ways are available to reach the ultimate truth. It's not that you follow only one religion to reach the ultimate truth. There are multiple paths of reaching the ultimate truth. And also, they say that truth is multi sided, there is no single version of a truth. So, going by this phenomena, it essentially preached religious pluralism, that you can follow any religion, any way to reach the ultimate truth. It also propounds religious tolerance. And Anekantavada was a core philosophy of Jainism, which was founded by Mahavir Jain, who regarded himself as the 24th and the last Tirthankara. So the right option will be option B, Jainism. Which one of the following animals was not represented on the seals and terracotta art of Harappan culture? Option A, cow. Option B, elephant. Option C, rhinoceros. Option D, tiger. Now, this is a very factual question. And if you see images of certain seals of Indus Valley civilization, you can come across animals like elephant, animals like rhinoceros, and animals like tiger. One-horned rhinoceros was visible through the seals, the mother goddess and the tiger visible in one of the seal, elephant was visible. The cow was not there in the seals that were excavated so far. Rather, humped bull was present. It's important to know that Indus Valley civilization was once again the earliest, the most known earliest civilization that domesticated cattle as an economic occupation. And in this regard, they for some reason, though they knew cow, though they domesticated cow for its benefits, but it is still the bull that they worshipped. So they gave special importance to bull, but not cow probably. That is why they did not put cow on the terracotta seals and figures. So they did not represent option A, cow. So the answer will be option A. The river most mentioned in early Vedic literature is option A, Sindhu, Option B, Sutudri, which is the Sanskrit name for Sutlej. Option C, Saraswati. And option D, Ganga. Now, if you look at the early Vedic literature, the people who designed this early Vedic literature is believed to come from the northwestern part of our country. And initially, when they entered India, they settled around the present regions of northwest India in the present days of, or else in the present day Punjab. And that is where they started to live. That is when they started to build a civilization at that time, which we call it as early Vedic civilization. Okay, and when they resided in the northwestern India, they depended on Indus or else Sindhu for a lot of purposes, and they venerated Sindhu for the same reason. If you come across epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, you can see the references to Sindhu, the river Sindhu, given a lot. This region around the river Sindhu in Mahabharata was a part of Dasharatha's empire. And if you see, and if you look at the history of Lord Rama, there was an ancestor of Lord Rama whose name was Raghu, who had a great battle near the Indus Valley region, and he rejoiced and he took rest on the banks of river Sindhu. So if you look at the early Vedic literature, early Vedic earliest songs, the hymns, the chants, they mention river Sindhu and Saraswati. However, the most mentioned becomes Sindhu. It is the present day Indus region. You can also see why other people referred to the people living around here as Hindu. Isn't it synonymous with Sindhu? And also, when during the medieval times, people saw the people living on the other side of Indus River as Hinds, and the region becoming Hindustan. Okay, so Sindhu was the river that was most mentioned in early Vedic literature. So the right option will be option A, Sindhu. It was the one which is most mentioned in early Vedic literature. Match list 1 with list 2 and select the correct answer using the codes given below the lists. You can see list 1, which contains the names of ancient Harappan sites, and list 2, which contains the archaeological findings that were unearthed in these sites. The list 1 contains Lothal, Kalibangan, Dholavira, and Banwali. Lothal was an Indus Valley site situated on the banks of river Sabarmati, and it served as one of the most important coastal cities of Indus Valley civilization that helped them, or that was a place where they could conduct sea trade with other civilizations like Mesopotamian civilization of that time. So, being a coastal town and helping the sea trade at that time, Lothal contained option, that is list 2. In the list 2, the most plausible one would be number 2, that is dockyard. Kalibangan is situated in the banks of river Ghaggar, and it is in the present day Rajasthan state. And if you look at the region around Kalibangan, they had a going by the archaeological evidences, they had a well-built irrigation system within the city, and the soil was fertile enough for them to carry out regular agriculture for their economic activities. So from the list 2, the most plausible match would be number 1, plowed field. Dholavira is once again a city in the present day Gujarat in the Kutch district. Now, it was a well-developed city, most urbanized, economically well-off, and probably it encouraged some sort of literature activity out of all the prosperity that they had. And in Dholavira, there were a lot of excavation which majorly pointed out or else threw light on the Harappan script. Okay, that is where the most probably the intellectuals, the literate people, they were living there, and probably this is the reason why we found out some signs of the Harappan script. So the most plausible match for Dholavira would be number 4 from the list 2, an inscription comprising 10 large signs of the Harappan script. Banwali is in the present-day Haryana, situated on the banks of river Saraswati. And in Banwali, there was a terracotta replica of a plow found there. So Banwali would match to number 3 on the list to terracotta replica of a plow. Please go through this this other ancient sites of Harappa and try to find out the major archaeological excavations that were a defining feature of those ancient sites, like the bronze image of a dancing girl, the seal of Mother Goddess, the mound of the priest. So try to find this. Try to make a list. Try to make a table like this. At one end, the sites, the other end, the defining feature, archaeological findings, and so on. So it'll be easy for you to remember and match things. Okay. So from here, the right option will be option B. What does Bodhian Theorem, Bodhian Salva Sutra relate to? Option A, lengths of a sides of a right angle triangle. Option B, calculation of the value of pi. Option C, logarithmic calculations. Option D, normal distribution curve. Now, Bodhayan was an ancient Indian mathematician, and he was the author of Sulba Sutra, which were a compilation of a lot of mathematical calculations, which were practically used at that time for the construction purposes, like construction of altars. And in one of these calculations, Bodhayan made a calculation or made a theorem to calculate the lengths of sides of a right angle triangle. This is called Bodhayan theorem. So the right option will be option A. And it is also interesting to know that Bodhayan was also the same person who at that time calculated the value of pi, and he also calculated the square root of 2, and he also devised a methodology for circling of the square. So no doubt he was one of the greatest mathematician on Indian soil, and Bodhayan theorem is theorem related to Pythagoras theorem, which helps in calculating the lengths of sides of right angle triangle. The right option is option A. Which one of the following four Vedas contains an account of magical charms and spells? Four Vedas. Within which Veda it has magical charms and spells? Option A, Rig Veda. Option B, Yajurveda. Option C, Atharva Veda. Option D, Samaveda. Now, if you look at the four Vedas, Rig Veda is the earliest form of Vedas. Yajurveda is a book of prayers. Samaveda has earliest references to singing and music. Atharva Veda contains the rituals, the charms, the spells that has to accompany the prayers. So the right option will be option D, Samaveda. Sorry, Atharva Veda. Option C, that is the right answer, which contains charms and spells. The next question is CSAT English comprehension, and there is a passage given which says, there has been a significant trend worldwide towards regionalism in government, resulting in a widespread transfer of powers downwards towards regions and communities since 1990s. So there has been decentralization, that is what they mean to say. This process, which involves the creation of new political entities and bodies at the subnational level and an increase in their content and powers, is known as devolution. Devolution has been characterized as being made up of three factors. Number one, political legitimacy. Number two, decentralization of authority. And number three, decentralization of resources. Political legitimacy here means a mass demand from below for the decentralization process, which is able to create a political force for it to take place. In many cases, decentralization is initiated by the upper tier of the government without sufficient political mobilization for it at the grassroots level. And in such cases, the decentralization process does not fulfill its objectives. The essence of this paragraph is that there has been a demand by the people across the world to devolve more power to them, and this devolution is a mass demand, but it can also be imposed from the top. The question, which among the following is the most logical, rational, and critical interference that can be made from the above passage? Most logical, most rational, and critical, that is close, that is clear, that is to the point, with limited to the above passage only. Option A, emergence of powerful mass leaders is essential to create subnational political entities, thus ensure successful devolution and decentralization. Option B, the upper tier of the government should impose devolution and decentralization on the regional communities by law or otherwise. Devolution, option C, devolution to be successful requires a democracy in which there is a free expression of the will of the people at lower level and their active participation at the grassroots level. For devolution to take place, a strong feeling of regionalism in the masses is essential. Now, how do we decode the right option? Emergence of powerful mass leaders is essential to create. No, the paragraph also says that it can be imposed from above also. So this is not the only emergence of powerful mass leaders is not the only factor wherein the decentralization can happen. The upper tier of government should impose devolution and decentralization. No, it says that it is coming from down and that is when it is successful. But if it is not saying government should impose, it is all saying government can impose and it will not be successful by then. So option B is somewhat not matching. Now let us look at this option D first. For devolution to take place, a strong feeling of regionalism in the masses is essential. Now, yes, this says that feeling of regionalism is coming, but it also said that it can be imposed from above. It can be imposed by the government at the top itself. So only a strong feeling of regionalism is not the only essential factor. So option A, option B, and option D can be eliminated. So the right option will be option C, and which is most logical to the given paragraph. Devolution, to be successful, requires a democracy in which there is a free expression of the will of the people at lower level and their active participation at the grassroots level. Yes, it is correct. Though the paragraph says that it can be imposed from top, but still it sends out a message that it won't be successful. And in order to be successful, it has to be come from the people. I mean, it has to come from the people who are demanding decentralization at the grassroots level. So the right option, the most plausible option, would be option C. Thank you, everyone. All the best.